was born in Paris, France. I lived there until I was 6 years old, actually, and went to bilingual school as I was growing up during that period, so I learned English. And at age 6, moved to the United States, moved to the east coast of the U.S., Washington, D.C. area. Grew up in the D.C. area, actually, through high school. Had a brief stint, actually, in Hawaii, junior high school, 8th and 9th grades. Then back to the Washington, D.C. area, college in Boston, and then after college moved to California. It's kind of a resume of where I've been. I was actually interested in gadgets, little electronic gadgets, whether it was calculators. Actually, I remember early on going out shopping for a calculator, and this was when calculators were like $100, with my dad, I think. And so I was always fascinated by these little gadgets, and I always managed to break them for one reason or another, of course, as kids do. And then I would take them apart and try to fix them, which I was never able to. I've always been into the gadgets, and I guess when I first saw a computer, I'm trying to think if it was it might have been third grade. It was pretty early on, actually. And it was an early TRS-80, Radio Shack, kind of the original Radio Shack TRS-80 computer, 4K of memory. I think this one had the 4K or the 8K expansion module, which was like as big as a desk, and learned how to program BASIC on it. And I used to actually cut gym, sneak into the computer room, which wasn't really a room, it was a closet where they kept the computer between classes, and play on the computer. I always wanted to be involved with computers. My original kind of career choice, what I thought I was going to do, was more computer engineering, which was, I thought, figure out the hardware and the software, combine the two to learn about computers. When I got to college at Tufts, I was accepted into the engineering school to do an electrical engineering, computer engineering program. I learned quickly there in my first semester, I learned very quickly that the engineering program was a little bit too rigorous for me, and I took a chemistry class, I think that was second semester, freshman year, because it was required for the engineering program, taking chemistry. I had no interest in chemistry. And I worked so hard for that class, trying to understand what was going on, study for the tests and everything. Did so poorly. I remember for the midterm, I studied harder than I had for anything else and got a 25 out of 100 on the test. And it was at that point I said, you know what, this is kind of ridiculous. So I transferred out of the engineering college, went to liberal arts, and just did the pure computer science. That was my professional debut, $6 an hour, and it's funny too thinking about it, because it was using computer technology, right, to print out library cards for the card, and so all it was a program to just format. Somebody would type in the information and it would format it the way the librarian wanted, so they could put the cards in the card catalog. So this is like incredibly basic computer technology. This is no database there, no search engine, nothing like that. But yeah, $6 an hour. And also, at that time, I also worked on the software to help schedule classes, which was key. This was in high school, 10th or 11th grade, I think, when I was working on that. And, I resisted the temptation to put in some code in there to make sure I never had classes on Friday, because I wouldn't have been able to get away with it. But I thought about it. When I was in college, I taught myself how to program the Macintosh. A big foundation, actually, for that was a class. So it wasn't completely self-taught. It was a C programming class called Data Structures. It was the big, kind of the weed-out class for the computer science program. Learned how to program C. Great professor, probably one of the best I've ever had. And a couple things stem from that story. The first is that professor eventually had to leave the school. He was a great teacher, but apparently he never published anything. And so they asked, he had to leave, and that was a scandal. at least in my mind. So I don't know what exactly that taught me, but it did have an impact on me. And yeah. And then the second, I learned how to program C, and then I used that ability to teach myself how to program the Macintosh, which I was just very excited about learning everything I could about it. And of course, that's how I began actually my professional career. Was after college, actually a year before graduating from college, I took a summer job in California working at a software company for the Macintosh. The most important thing of eBay is the human side now. But at the beginning, I didn't get that. For me, it was an experiment. It was like, like I said, I wanted to create an efficient market where individuals could benefit from participating in an efficient market, kind of level the playing field. And I thought, gee, the internet, the web, it's perfect for this. And this was more of an intellectual pursuit, than anything else. It was just an idea that I had, and I started it as an experiment, as a side hobby, basically, while I had my day job. And it just kind of, it grew. Within 6 months, it was earning revenue that was paying my costs. Within 9 months, the revenue was more than I was making at my day job. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off, and knock, 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 you've got a business here, do something about it. So that's when that really started. I always kind of just went ahead and tried things. And one of the things I learned later, more kind of professionally, is that a lot of people don't just go ahead and try things. Like, they'll have an idea and they'll convince themselves, or other people will convince them, that it can't be done, one or the other. And actually, I think that the first is more dangerous and more serious, is convincing yourself that it can't be done. And I never learned that for some reason. So I just kind of had this naive approach to, well, gee, why not? I'll just go ahead and do it. If you think about it, commerce and trade is at the base of all human activity. And it's a bit of an exaggeration, but I like to talk about, in the old days, people would bring their stuff to market and they'd do business, and then they'd go back to, their hillside homes or wherever. And eventually they were doing this enough that you had to build a wall around them to protect them, and that was the birth of cities and so forth. Again, gross generalizations and simplifications. But fundamentally, everything we do in human activity is related to trade. And there's something, I think, that's wired in human beings that drives us to commerce. I'm not sure what it is exactly. But the human side, so that's the human side I'm referring to, with eBay, it became apparent very quickly. Because in order to do a transaction with someone, you actually have to get to know that person and build a trusting relationship first. So you have to build trust before you will enter into a transaction. And so in order to build trust, you have to communicate. You have to get to know one another. And so very quickly, I started getting letters about, actually, some of the early letters were more negative. They were, this guy's a jerk kind of thing. And I said, okay, there's some human element to that I wasn't expecting. Please be nice. Not everyone is a jerk. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Give people the benefit of the doubt. So very, very quickly, I learned that it was actually the human element that was really driving it more than the commerce. So it was kind of interesting. If you think about a retail environment where people are buying things in a retail environment, the retailer has a whole bunch of control. They choose the products, they design the store or the catalog, they train the salespeople, they control the experience. And if there's a problem with a salesperson, they retrain and so on and so forth. At eBay, our customer's experience is based on how one customer interacts with another customer, okay? And you can't control customer behavior. So the only thing you can do is have a certain set of values that you encourage people to adopt. And the only way your customers are going to adopt those values is if they see that you're living those values as well. So when I say that I believe people are basically good, it's because I believe people are basically good. I mean, it's not something that I came up with for eBay. And if I say that you should treat people with the benefit of the doubt, it's because I believe in that as a way of life. And we have to do it internally at eBay, at the company, as well, because if we don't, then eventually that seeps through and customers will see that, and that will harm our business. because we can't control customer behavior. So our business is based on that. What eBay did really was it was create a new market, one that wasn't really there before, and that was a global market for the kind of goods that were usually traded at flea markets and garage sales and this kind of thing. And that was the start of it, and it hadn't existed before. And now it's progressed past that into consumer electronics, computers. A lot of people don't know that, and I'll put a plug in for my business here, but they don't know that kind of every category that we're in addition to collectibles, we're the #1 leader in terms of the dollars traded in that category on the internet, except for books and music, because there's another company that's pretty good at that. But I mean, consumer electronics, computer equipment, sporting goods, everything. It's jewelry. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So that base of kind of the flea market base has really evolved into a market for pretty much everything. You can't predict growth and success. No one in their right mind would predict 30% growth for another year, every month. Monthly growth for another year. So we were behind on a lot of things, on a lot of the infrastructure, and we had some fairly public failures in the middle of '99, and where our systems went down for 22 hours and then went down for 8 hours after that. And we had a very large community then. I mean, not as large as today, obviously, but still very large. Front page news. We had CNN satellite trucks in the parking lot. I mean, it was big. The world is watching. This company's gone. It's going away. And I think failure of that magnitude, or a challenge of that magnitude, is really important. And I'm glad that we faced it so early in our evolution, because Meg, who's the CEO, I brought on Meg in March of '98. She really woke up to the fact that infrastructure and technology was critical, and just really built that organization out over it was a 6 to 9 month process for us to kind of get over that. And so I think those challenges are also really critical, really important, and what you learn from them is, of course, kind of what they say is, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, and it's true. And what you learn from those challenges and those failures are what will get you past the next ones. I say that you should pursue your passion. If you're passionate about something and you work hard, then I think you'll be successful. If you start a business because you think you're going to make a lot of money at it, then you probably won't be successful, because that's the wrong reason to start a business. You have to really believe in what you're doing, be passionate enough about it so that you will put in the hours and the hard work that it takes to actually succeed there, and then you'll be successful. When you look at the accomplishments of accomplished people, and you say, boy, that must have been really hard. When you look at something that looks hard, that was probably easy. And conversely, when you look at something that looks easy, that was probably hard. And so you're never going to know which is which until you actually go and do it. So just go and do it, try, learn from it. You'll fail at some things. That's a learning experience that you need so that you can take that on to the next experience. And don't let people who you may respect and who you believe know what they're talking about, don't let them tell you it can't be done. Because often they will tell you it can't be done, and it's just because they don't have the courage to try it. If we can help people reconnect with their communities, I think we can work together as a global community and solve the world's problems. It's a bit idealistic, but we're really looking kind of for second-order effects in what we're doing. In other words, if we can just get people to just reconnect with their community, just realize that you're an individual, but you have a responsibility to be part of your community. And that responsibility is not just a burden, but it also comes with benefits that are real tangible benefits that you'll see being a part of that community. Then just think, if everyone thought like that, you could actually tackle local community problems, homelessness, healthcare, just serious problems, and you could tackle global problems as well. because we now have, again, a global communications medium, and communities are being built not just in the real world, but in the virtual world as well. So I'm very hopeful that the reconnection with community that frankly, I first became passionate about because of eBay, because I saw it happen on eBay. I'm very hopeful that that reconnection is going to dramatically improve the world.